You all, good afternoon. Welcome to today's Voices from the Ground. We're on a rather different time zone from our normal time zone, so I'm very grateful for everyone who's taken the time to join us today, and particularly to our participants, Gustavo and Mercedes. Gustavo's had a particularly early start from El Salvador. I'm April Butt. I'm Head of Impact at Risk at LMDF, the Luxembourg Microfinance and Development Fund. We're an impact investment fund based in Luxembourg, which specialises in investments in Tier 2 and Tier 3 emerging microfinance institutions. We realise that many of the countries in which we operate, oh, sorry about these, I've got a lot of notifications popping up. We realise that many of the countries in which we operate are facing different challenges from Luxembourg in the time of COVID. It's very important for us in Luxembourg to do what we can to support the institutions still working to provide support to micro entrepreneurs. One of the best ways for us to do so is to understand the challenges and ambitions of the institutions with which we work at this time. We're therefore running a series of webinars to see how the countries which receive our investments are reacting. This has taken us to Kenya, Myanmar and Cambodia and Burkina Faso, and I was very glad to see some of our previous participants in the call today. And this week we're headed to Central America. We're delighted to host Mercedes Canalda, who's a lot of very important roles, including as Presidenta Ejecutiva del Banco de Ahorro y Crédito Óptima in the Dominican Republic. Today, however, Mercedes is speaking in her role as Presidente de la REDCAMIF, Red Centroamericana y del Caribe de Microfinanzas. Excuse my terrible Spanish here.
Yeah, it's fine.
And she'll be giving us a broad overview of trends in the region. We're also delighted to have Gustavo Siman, the president and founder of Óptima, on the line. Óptima was one of LMDF's early partners and has had a very, very impressive growth trajectory during the years when we've worked with them. In fact, if you read our previous semi-annual report, you'll see a feature on Óptima, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners will have looked at it. It's a very, very interesting story. El Salvador has taken very early action when it comes to COVID and is viewed as having one of the harshest lockdown regimes in Latin America. Gustavo will share more about its impact on micro entrepreneurs with us. So I'm sure everyone wants to get straight into hearing from our panelists. So perhaps we could start with you, Mercedes. Could you tell us a bit about your work in Central America and the Caribbean and what you were doing within REDCAMIF prior to the COVID crisis?
Prior to the COVID crisis, we have been doing in REDCAMIF the integration of the all networking institutions that were in every country of Central America and the Dominican Republic. So we have been supporting with different projects and also with different technical assistance to all the institutions that are the networking at local places in every country. So we have a very big challenge to work in create products and services that are useful for the client of the microfinance or micro business in the region. So that was the most important part of the REDCAMIF before this COVID-19 crisis.
And clearly things have changed a lot in the region since COVID. How is your role at REDCAMIF changing? What different responses and impacts are you seeing in the region?
Yes, as you said, for example, El Salvador was a early action, but not all the country have that reaction. So some of them have biggest consequence and biggest problem than others. Actually, we are constantly.
Oh, say this. You've gone mute, I think.
You don't listen to me now.
Yeah, yes. You're back.
Yes, I'm back.
Yes.
Perfect. As you said, some countries, as El Salvador, did an early action, but others don't did that process. And actually, we have some very important focus at REDCAMIF that we are working first with the client, how to do the reinvention of the business of the client, how can we support them with a different product specifically more electronics product to do any transactions in the different institutions that work in the networking of REDCAMIF. Another aspect that is very important now that we have been working very close is the team. Some part of the team already got many problems because maybe the family has already the situation of the COVID or the enterprise where they have been working are not working anymore. So it's very difficult, the situation actually. What we are focusing is in how to support the client and bringing them a faster way and a very sure way to make and to keep on the transaction that they normally do. Is creating a new operational environment, more technological, more remote. And the point is that when you look for microfinance, is a very personal service. Now you have to work changing that and maybe focus in more in keep the individual service, but the contact is by phone, by any kind of this instrument that we have, the technology now. So it's a learning process. This part of the world is very positive and have a lot of optimism. But anyway, we have been watching that in average, 90% of the business in this sector don't have the possibility to produce. So we need to focus in the reinvention of the business, in taking care of the client and the team that is working in the different organizations that are part of the REDCAMIF.
That's very, very interesting. And I think what you were saying about technology and the human touch at this time is a very profound message. Moving over to Gustavo, perhaps you could give us a brief introduction to yourself and your work in Óptima, but then also give us an overview of how things have developed in El Salvador, given that there's been such a strong reaction to the COVID crisis there. I know you also do some work in Honduras, and perhaps contrasting the two countries could give us an interesting perspective on the impact of the harsh lockdown.
Sure, thank you. So I'm Gustavo Siman. I'm founder and president of Óptima Financial Services, a company that I founded 11 years ago. I'm also involved in renewable energy and affordable housing, which are projects here in Central America. Regarding what we've been doing, so since early on, I think we assembled a team to put in place, an emergency plan to make sure that we would focus on 5 things. One is, first of all, making sure that our people were safe and their families as well. So we assembled a small team to make sure that we took all the necessary precautions and steps to make sure that happened. Then the second piece was trying to make sure that we stayed extremely close to our clients, not only to see how their businesses are doing, what new requirements they needed, how things were evolving. And around that issue, we have kept very close contact with the clients through interviews or surveys. We also created or accelerated the launch of a mobile app where we're currently already disbursing through an e-wallet to our clients. And that has proven very helpful for us to maintain that touch, that continuity, and that closeness to understand how things are evolving with our families and with their businesses. And we have seen that clients really appreciate that. And I think that's a way to get an increased loyalty from them once they emerge from this situation. The third piece is our liquidity strategy and how we've been working with our lenders throughout Europe, throughout the world. We also issue bonds in the stock market, so we've been very close to our underwriters and to the main purchasers of our debt. And we have managed to have very adequate levels of liquidity going forward. Then the fourth element is making sure that our operations, the continuity in our operations. So we have beefed up, the strategy of having redundancies and backup plans and a team in place to make sure that we don't lose continuity. For example, we had an issue whereby one of our branches had to be shut down because there was a hotel nearby where the government used it as a center for quarantine. So we immediately had to transfer that branch to another location within 2 days, and we continued operating that branch properly. And then the fifth element of that emergency plan was regarding product development and new business development. And that's the team that has pretty much supported a lot of the efforts that we've been building to make sure that we evolve our business model into this new reality. So that's what we have done. As you mentioned, El Salvador is one of the toughest governments to implement this strategy to prevent the spread of coronavirus. So we were one of the first countries to shut down our borders, airports, and then to start the quarantine. So that has been great in the sense that the spread of the virus is quite small. So currently we have about 229 cases. We have 7 deaths. Honduras, in the contrast, has probably started a bit later. It's less of a strict regime in that sense, but we see that the impacts are somewhat similar. Here in El Salvador, the government early on announced, that all the installments for bank loans or financial institution loans could be reprogrammed during 3 months. So they were very loud and clear about the message. So we went out to our clients and made a survey and had them sign a paper or an electronic paper where they actually asked for that request to have those installments deferred. Honduras has adopted a similar decree, but it hasn't been spread that clearly within the population. It's only for 2 months. So we have seen that the level of repayment in Honduras has been somewhat higher than the ones we have here in El Salvador. Although in certain areas, Cortés and other areas in Honduras have been more strictly locked down lately as a result of the spread. So those are the things that we're looking. So in terms of the impact that we see, regarding, for example, remittances, both countries rely significantly on remittances from immigrants, mainly to the U.S. And for example, El Salvador, 17% of our GDP is comprised of remittance business. That's equivalent to $4.8 billion of remittances, and we're expecting that to decrease roughly by 30%. Honduras's remittance business is roughly 20% of Honduras' GDP. So we're expecting that to have a similar impact there as well.
Now, there's several things that you've mentioned that I've been very interested in hearing more about. First of all, you mentioned that you were in very close communications with your clients about the impact. I'd be interested to know what these sort of impact studies are showing, how your clients are being affected in their day-to-day life, in their business activities.
Yeah, so we have, first of all, kept, phone communications with them, as well as also online surveys that we've been doing with them to try to bucket the clients in different categories. The ones, for example, depending on the sector, depending on the geographic location, depending on the specific nature of the business that they do. For example, we have seen an important part of our business, of our clients that run businesses, for example, the small mom and pop shops, but the ones that are located in areas that are residential areas as opposed to commercial areas. So we have seen the ones that are located in residential areas that have had increased sales. So we're actually, depending on the record with us, providing additional loans for working capital so they can provide their business with inventory. The ones that are operating in more commercial areas are actually having a tougher time. So basically, we have a very small percentage that have actually mentioned that they have not been affected by this crisis. But the vast majority, around 82%, have told us that their sales have actually decreased by more than 50%. So that's an issue that I think most of us are experiencing and sounds logical, right?
Yeah.
Then we also asked them if their current business was their only source of income. And remember, in our industry, when you usually do the customer evaluation process, they usually refer to having several streams of income. But it was interesting to see in our survey that basically we have 90% of clients only having one income stream. So that's one of the things. And then we asked them if they were considering looking for an additional source of income. We had about 13% saying they were currently doing that or shifting their current business. And we also asked them in how long they felt they were, that things were going to be back to normal. And around 65% thought 3 months. And then in 6 months, about 20% said in 6 months. So that's how they're viewing the situation will last. So we have structured a system whereby our loan officers need to contact our clients on a weekly basis. And we're changing the nature of the approach, the speech, from being first of all how you're dealing with this, how's your family doing, what help we can give you, and then evolving more closely in terms of their business. So through this app that we've launched, we've actually launched a system of they're like lessons, they're like online tools how to run their business in times of emergency. And we have seen a very large percentage of the clients that have actually downloaded the app that are actually using this tool to learn a lot more about how to cope with the situation, how to run their business during these times. So that's been very helpful. We feel very proud. I'm very proud of our team because we've actually reconstructed our business model and we've launched all these things that I think they are helping us be very close to our clients. We've also launched a campaign where we're telling our clients, keep paying and we'll keep providing the services to you. So to generate a conscious regarding the continuity in payments. And that has seemed to be working well as well.
This is extremely impressive in terms of all the efforts you've made for business continuity and responding to your clients' needs and collecting all the data on this. Mercedes, I'd be interested in knowing, from the point of view of the Central American and Caribbean area, you have a lot of natural disasters, a lot of hurricanes. Does this mean that MFIs are especially well equipped to deal with business continuity issues, in your opinion?
Not really. The natural disasters.
Also, you've got your thumb on the screen, so we can't see you at the moment. If you
you can see me. Let me check.
No, we see a finger, I think.
Oh my God.
Sorry.
Now better.
No, but don't worry. It's okay. But yeah. Oh, perfect. Excellent. We see you again. Thank you. Yeah.
Well, the natural disaster in the Central American region and the Caribbean have normally happen every year and a couple of times in a year, but it's a very different crisis. It's a crisis that began with a sanitary and more DC option or focusing, and then became an economic crisis. And if you see, for example, those years before that we have been working in designing some different strategies to work with those natural disasters, sometimes you keep one part of the portfolio and one part of the client that are doing the same thing, and maybe they are improving the business because the situation. But with this kind of crisis, with the COVID-19, it's very difficult that I believe that no one is prepared for this, and we have to be like day by day trying to get the information and trying to get the solution of this situation. As you see, you have different options for different kind of client. If it's a rural client, or if it's a urban client, even the kind of business that the client is doing it's important to have a clear solution for them, and also to have the team learning in how to, as Gustavo said, the approach of the client is different, but it's not so easy to have that normal contact by phone or by WhatsApp if they are not used to, or even if they don't have the opportunity to have Wi-Fi in their areas, in rural areas, and also they don't have any phone in those areas. So you have to be very clear in the strategy that you are going to design or you are implementing in the different institutions, depending the kind of client, the kind of business. Because another aspect that this type of client, the microfinance client, is that they are very fast. They can change and they can move from one business to another. But when they do that, they need to have the economical basis of the country working. If they don't have that, they don't have the opportunity to change their business focus. So it's very difficult because you have to make like a very clear information on what are the options to focus in the client that need to keep on with the business, with the family, and of course with being sure that they are okay and they are going on with this process.
Yeah, thank you. And you've mentioned, I'd be quite interested to know how you've mentioned that some of the rural areas are struggling. Are you noticing there being more of a rural-urban divide in how people are coping with COVID, Mercedes?
In the case of the Caribbean and Central America, most of the cases are in the urban areas. And the impact in the urban areas also are difficult because the people is more cloudy, is more difficult to work. The rural areas sometimes is easier to get normally daily food, even the small businesses, agricultural. So as we see now, the challenge in the rural area is the communication and is how to get close to them in the places that are very remote and very difficult to be there and to get there in a distance that the people know that you are giving the support, and looking for another channel, not only the traditional digitalization channel as an e-wallet, but only like any kind of business that is working close to your community, that you can receive the service and you have that contact with the people that can, not close contact, not the content that we use as an industry have been doing for a long time. We have to focus in a new way to work, but being very touching, not, but close with the client as an opportunity to keep on the business. Because the point here is that the business have been changing radically from one day to another. We are doing another kind of business that is microfinance, but the approach and the way to make the evaluation and the way to receive the product and to receive the training and the support to do the business is completely different. So you feel when you talk with the client, when you talk with the team, that they need to have that support.
I'm very interested in what you were saying about changes. Gustavo, do you have any response to how you feel the fundamental nature of your business is changing or not changing? You mentioned that you were doing some new business development and you had business development people on the ground. Could you talk us a bit more about this strategy? Oh, and we can't hear you.
Sorry, yeah, okay. Right, so yeah, we definitely think the nature of the business will change. And as Mercedes was saying, you know, this is a business where the closeness of our loan officers, of our whole organization to our client is key, right? These are businesses that, or entrepreneurs that, you know, we go out to visit them rather than them having come to our branches on a regular basis. So that will change. So that's what we're trying, first of all, to bank on a couple of pillars. One is education, right? How to educate our client, first of all, to deal with technology, feel comfortable with it, and then also how to use it, right? And how to interact with it. And so what we are trying to take advantage of is having some tools within our mobile app, for example, that would allow us to get more information in terms of how frequently they purchase goods or how frequently they sell, to monitor the business in a way that we have a better visibility as to how the business is evolving. So I think that's one important thing. The other piece is, I think there's several businesses that will definitely change in terms of the sector that they operate in. For example, manufacturing business that we serve, those clients, I think we're expecting those business, to change in the sense that, we don't know how, the government will enable plants to operate. Most likely it won't be on a normal basis, right? It'll be more spread out. So we're trying to develop tools to help our clients cope with these changes. Regarding, the way we finance our clients' new products in terms of having loans that are specific, shorter-term loans that have, for example, bullet payments at the end to give them some sort of a breathing room while they stabilize their cash flow. Those are basically some of the changes that we're looking in terms of development.
I think that's very interesting. I was also very struck by what you were saying in our preparation discussions about your app and its uptake. I know that you've spoken about it a bit already, but if you could give us a bit more information on it, because I think there's a lot for a lot of us to learn from this.
Right. So we embarked on a strategy that we wanted to launch our mobile app, right? And this obviously accelerated that process. So we pretty much relaunched it, and so we've had a significant increase in download that our clients are doing of that app. So only in the past, I think week and a half, we've had about 3,000 downloads. And people are actively interacting with the app. And what we do in the app is the client can look at their balance or their statements. They can actually ask for a loan. We can actually disburse the loan through the phone. So there's a whole, and then they can also access these materials, these training materials that I mentioned before. So it seems to be working well. We just, again, as I said, we just relaunched it, and we feel very comfortable that this tool will help us be very close, much closer to our clients.
Thank you. And I think we're getting on. I've got quite a lot of questions and answers coming in from the audience. Do drop more questions and answers or questions into the questions box at the moment. I'll ask one more question to our panelists before we get over to the audience. I think it'd be interesting to know your thoughts. From what we're hearing from Gustavo, a lot of measures are being taken that really strengthen and improve the institution for future business. These preparations are very positive elements, but I wonder how you're preparing for the exit process post-COVID. Perhaps Mercedes, what you're seeing in the region, and then Gustavo, your thoughts on the post-COVID business?
As the post-COVID business, I believe that the reactivation of the economy we won't be so immediately and need to be step by step. So I believe that when the country already have under control the situation, the strategies to look for those business and micro business that can get in immediately, because the situation is allow them to be there, and the demand also, and the production is necessary, and then begin to reactivation of the economy. For the recuperation, I believe that will be a new way to operation, to get back to our offices and to get back from this crisis. We have to be sure that all the technological implementation and all the new products and all the facility that we already are giving to our clients as don't pay now and pay in 3 months is very important to follow up the situation of the incorporation of those micro business in the economy, because as we can see, the process won't be immediately recuperation. So and also it's depend of the country, it's depend of the activity, and maybe the support that those clients need to have to get back to the business is important. And of course, for sure, the operational way to do that in our places, in our networking, will be also different.
And thank you, Mercedes. And Gustavo, from your perspective, like, how are you preparing for life post-lockdown?
Right. So I agree with Mercedes. I think it's going to be a staged, step-by-step opening of the economies. Nonetheless, I do think that the way that business is conducted, as I mentioned before, will significantly change. I think this is a complete, a disruption. It's an inflection point for many businesses, and I think these are opportunities where companies that actually evolve and go through a process of creative destruction that I think will enable to cope better. At the center of what we're doing, I think being a more client-centric institution will help us, get more clients and have them be more loyal. And by that, I mean specific things, as I mentioned, the technology tools, product development tools, technology. I think content is critical to go offer our clients a lot more than just financial services. So in terms of the physical interaction with the clients, I think that will have an impact as well. I think the number of times a loan officer gets physically close or in contact with our clients will decrease. And so we will have a more digital experience with clients. So what we're doing then, we're changing the metrics by which we're going to be measuring the success of our business or our people. Rather than supervising the team on the ground to see how often they visit our client and what the result was, we're now seeing that we're actually feeding all this data into our systems, and we can have a better approach as to how to measure the efficiency by which each branch manager, each supervisor, or a loan officer works. So those are the kinds of things that we're thinking about once we reopen, the business as usual. In terms of processes, I think it's also critical because, say, for example, one of the things that we've adopted here, El Salvador does not have yet, the digital signature, so that we have been requiring a physical signature on the loans. So we've broken the way we serve, or we're dispersing these clients through, loan size or type of loan that we're providing our client. And so we're working now to develop, together with the government, legislation around that sort of tool to enable us to do it more digitally. And I think we're currently taking some additional risks to have, certain loan sizes dispersed with no physical signature in a pagaré, in a legal document. Okay, so those are the things that we're looking that will actually evolve once we take out of this lockdown.
Okay, thank you. I think we'll have several questions coming in on that soon. I've got big questions already from the audience, so if there's any others, then please submit them. First of all, we've got a question from Paul and Wendy, who work for ADA, based in Cambodia. We're very pleased to have you on the line, given the huge time difference. And their question is, you mentioned the government imposing, this is for Gustavo, you mentioned the government imposing 3-month payment moratorium. Has the regulator adjusted policies to minimize the impact on financial institutions? If so, what have they done?
No, they haven't. That's a short answer. I guess, I think our government has been very strict about the quarantining, but I think there hasn't been a lot of discussion around how to provide some sort of aid to businesses. And that's an ongoing discussion. What we've seen though is that there haven't been runoff deposits. So that's a positive thing. So I think banks, what banks are doing is they're holding their liquidity. And we're seeing banks and financial institutions that are actually not disbursing pretty much at all. And if they are, they're increasing their interest rates or they're asking for additional guarantees. But no, there hasn't been particular or specific aid by the government to help banks or institutions go through this process.
Okay, well, I think that gives us a lot to think about in Luxembourg. Question to Mercedes and Gustavo from Raymond Shadek, who's our chairman. Will this general global trend to consume and support locally have any effect on the businesses you're supporting in your respective countries, or is it anyway the de facto the case? So the importance of
I mean, so I think we have a strong a large percentage of our GDP is manufacturing, especially textiles and other products, coffee. I think I wouldn't expect that to change. I think while there's always been a strong campaign to consume local products or regional products for that matter, we're also very much influenced by the U.S., for example. So we tend to consume a lot of U.S. marketing-based, companies. Chains like Starbucks and other sort of fast food chains, as well as apparel, retail. So even consumer goods. So I think that should not. I don't anticipate that to change.
Mercedes?
Yes, the case, as Gustavo says, is a powerful promotion for use and produce the local products. And maybe one of the important areas that we have been working in all the countries in Central America also is the agricultural production with better quality and better process of environmental care. So I believe that in that sense, the change won't be very different, but the way that people are taking care of the national production and giving importance to that is new for the countries, and also is important that they have the facility for have a good equipment, a good or access to capital, and all the protocol that they need to have a good product. So we have to support the national production, and also the 14% of the whole trading in the world is from China. So most of the countries now don't want the commerce with China. So any way they are going to have an opportunity for the manufacturing and the production sector in our country. So it's interesting to think about that, but the change maybe won't be so fast.
And I think related to local production, we've got an interesting question from Claude Sadler. How much are smallholder farmers impacted by corona confinement measures? Do they still have access to markets? Is there any risk to their livelihood? I imagine you've both got a perspective on this. Gustavo?
Yeah, so we have seen that while large markets have been shut down, the main markets, I think what a lot of resourceful farmers have done is they are actually selling their production to other sort of resellers that actually have distribution. Those distribution of food products have not been banned. So we have seen our agricultural products that have continued. But that doesn't mean that a lot of our, not a lot, but a good percentage of our clients are seasonal crops. So probably we haven't gotten to that season yet. Let's say, for example, sugar. Sugar is a product that's more industrial sort of delivery type. So we have not seen an impact yet in those. We don't anticipate a huge impact on those small farmers.
Do you have something to add on that, Mercedes?
No, it's almost the same. We have been close to the client, and we don't have any impact immediately, and we don't think that in the next month of this year, maybe before the middle of the year, we're going to see anything. But also about that, but also the production in our country are very seasonal, so we have to keep on diversifying the production. That is not common in our countries. So the country are very focused in plantain or sugar cane. So it's interesting now that could be a challenge to change and to begin with a new product or production.
Now, I've got 4 questions left and we're running out of time, so we'll do very brief answers from these ones. But another question from Claude. In your opinion, will climate adaptation initiatives started or planned before Corona be negatively impacted by the crisis? I imagine, Mercedes, you have quite an insight into climate initiatives. Do you think they will be negatively impacted or positively impacted? More money coming in?
See, I believe that we're going to have an impact, and in some places will be that the climate initiative is more developed, so it will be easier and will be faster to get close to the process as a positive way. But in other places that don't have any information of that situation, it's very difficult to get them aware or to take any positive situation that from this aspect.
Thanks. And then we've got a question, and I think I'll address this to Gustavo, because you've mentioned remittances. Are there any specific instruments from microfinance institutions or the government to support the expected drop in remittances, which is such a pillar of the income of many households?
No, I mean, so far we have not seen any reaction in terms of supporting this line. I think the government is currently working through this, but we don't have a clarity as to how much it will really be impacted. We're anticipating around a 30% decrease, but that's just an estimate. I mean, it depends on how fast, migrant workers get back to work in the States or in Italy, which is a large other portion where Salvadorans work. What we are doing is we are keeping close track of the remittances that we serve our clients, that we receive through Western Union, for example, and we pay to our clients. So far, we've not seen a drop that's been significant in our business yet. So we had developed some products that were based on cash flow from remittances. We've actually stopped disbursing those types of clients until we see a reaction of how this actually pans out. But there's no specifically, a plan to support that business.
Thanks. And question for Gustavo from Cara Forster. Do you worry that your campaign for continuity could require clients to make sacrifices in order to keep repaying loans? Unacceptable sacrifices may mean sale of assets or gang-related activities and things like that. Or do you think that there's sufficient checks and balances in place?
No. So I think our strategy is, again, once you understand the real situation of the client, I think that would be a last resort, right? That's definitely not our strategy. I think in any case, what we are anticipating in some in a portion of our clients is that we will have to reschedule the loans even after the repayment, the repayment starts. But we don't intend our clients to then, have to get out of business or sell personal assets or family assets to be able to repay the loan. That's not our strategy. I think it's more an issue of understanding how the cash flow in their businesses work and try to adapt our loans or our products to make sure that they can once they reactivate, pay without having to sacrifice their families or their assets.
Yeah, I think that's very, very crucial. Good to hear your perspective on that. And then one final question, which I think rounds off this extremely nicely. This is from Raymond Shardek, our chairman again. You say your business will change. How does your expectation from organisations like us, the Luxembourg Microfinance and Development Fund, change? And what do you expect from us that we don't offer at the moment? And this is actually LMDF and ADA. I know, Mercedes, you have a lot to do with ADA as well, so it would be good to have, starting with your perspective, Mercedes.
Yes, the approach needs to change, and maybe the needs are changing. So we believe that the support and the way that to do business, and if they already are having business with our institution, also we as an institution need, as we said, that we are having the time for the client to do the recuperation process and have 3 months with no payment and no interest rate, no charge for delayment pay. All the other institutions need to focus on that, how to support the business to keep on from the institution and from the client, how to also teach the team to adequate to this situation, to also be close with the team, to understand their needs that are already changing, the way to work and the way to retrain them, how to do a great follow-up of the loan and the portfolio that we have. But actually, in our cases, we have been seeing yet that the problem could be the cash flow. In our cases in the Dominican Republic, the problem actually is the credit risk, because a high percentage of business can have the possibility to work. So we are having the government taking some measure that in another countries are not doing that, but in others, yes. Giving new fund, giving guarantee, giving facility, giving better interest rate for the institution to give to the client. And that actually is good because the client can have the opportunity to keep on working. But if the economy is not moving, the client cannot do the work. So most of the clients that don't have any kind of production in food or in pharmacy have not the possibility to take that facility. So we need that. It's important that any kind of fund, if they have relation before with our institution, get closer to our institution and understand the needs of every institution that could be different from the country, from the kind of business that we have been doing in microfinance. That's my recommendation.
And Gustavo, anything to add?
Yeah, I guess so. I think we see it in threefold, right? One is cash flow, and definitely what we're trying to do is try to match, the cash flow that we're seeing for the next 6 months. And I think in that regards, what we would expect is that you understand how our cash flow will behave from now and the next following months. And what we've been doing is we're continuing to pay interest as normal, and what we're asking is, say our renewals take place, right? So that we can renew whatever principal amounts come due. The other thing is trying to understand in detail, how the quality of the portfolio will be impacted in terms of, because what we don't want is to actually start rescheduling payments just to try to sort of, or seem to have a better situation than it actually is. I think it's going to take a while of how our clients reactivate their businesses. So we are going to be taking decisions as to which clients will reschedule, which clients will actually not be able to survive. And that's the part where we need to work closely with you guys to measure that impact, right? Because probably the underwriting process was the correct one, but the client is actually in a situation where he won't be able to come in. And that's where we want to step in and try to help our client to actually get reactivated. And then the third, I think, is understanding how our organization, in terms of talent, people, processes, and methodology, are adapting. Because it's not the same to see just the numbers, but I think that closeness that I think Mercedes referred to is important to try to make sense of how the whole business model has adapted, so you understand how then the business will be run going forward.
Yeah, I think that's given us a lot to think about, and particularly here in Luxembourg as well. I suppose we've overrun slightly this time, so we better close this call off with a huge thank you to Gustavo and Mercedes. We really appreciate what you've told us. You've given us a lot to think about, a lot of lessons, and I think some optimism as well about how businesses, microfinance institutions have been changing for the better. So I think we've got some good reasons to be positive as perhaps countries start to begin lifting COVID measures. In the meantime, we wish everyone to stay very, very safe. We've got another call next Thursday with Kyrgyzstan, so we'll keep you posted on that via the newsletter. And yeah, thanks again, everybody. We really, really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank
Stay
you very
safe.
much.
Stay
Bye-bye.
safe.
Bye. You too.